I want to start my talk with a question for you all, and I want you to raise your hand if your answer is yes. Have you ever visited a big event like a tech conference and have been hiding in the bathroom for a while? Okay, there are some, that's good. This is me at a tech conference, or rather it's my bag at a tech conference. But let's start at the beginning. Who am I? So I'm Mirjam. I started my working life as an industrial management assistant, that's a very German word, and I worked in that area for a really long time. I did project management, recruiting, budgeting, controlling, basically a lot of Excel magic. And I also worked as a dog trainer for almost 9 years, and my focus was working with people that had dogs with behavior issues like social like anxiety or aggression. And a few years ago, I decided to change my career path yet again, because it gets boring, and I'm working now as a software engineer. And there is one other thing you need to know about me, at least for today. I don't order food. That's not 100% true, it's kind of lying, because I love food and I love ordering food at home because it's the best. You don't have to do anything, you just get food, you don't have to leave the house, you have nothing to clean up. So obviously, I love ordering food at home. If somebody else does it for me, that is, because I hate to call and order it. And yeah, I can do that online, but I never go and open the door when the pizza arrives, like ever. I've never done that. Because behind that door is a stranger. And just thinking about talking to them makes my palms sweaty. Talking to unknown people in general is something that scares the heck out of me. And now you may have an idea why sometimes I hide in bathrooms at conferences, right? So what's up with that? Let's dive into something called social anxiety. It's an experience that a lot of us have encountered. It's the fear or nervousness that we feel in moments where we have to interact with other people in a social context. You know, those moments where you might describe yourself as shy or socially awkward. And social anxiety is kind of a tricky beast because it can be hard to grasp or notice in people. It can occur only in very specific settings or with specific people. For example, you can feel super fine talking with your friends, but get really nervous and anxious when you meet new people. Party small talk is something that may scare the heck out of you, but you're totally fine when you have to do the same thing at a work event. And you can even be able to stand on a stage and give a talk to a bunch of strangers, yet freeze up when you just think about having to talk to somebody that brings pizza to your house. And these feelings of social anxiety are common. They are part of being human. A lot of us have to deal with them from time to time. And they are not new either. The first, or one of the first written descriptions I could find is from 1621. And the author, Robert Burton, wrote about social anxiety in reference to a patient of Hippocrates. And he wrote, I will read it to you, he dare not come into company for fear he should be misused, disgraced, overshoot himself in gestures or speeches, or be thick. He thinks every man observes him. And honestly, the first time I read that, I was like, Robert, why did you call me out like that? I felt, honestly, personally attacked almost, because that is exactly how I feel when I meet new people. I'm stressing out about saying something super stupid, about talking too loud, or talking too much, or hurting someone using my hands, because I do that a lot when I speak, or just in any way embarrassing myself. And, you know, I can make that whole topic sound a bit funny. I can throw in a lot of memes and GIFs. It's my love language anyway, as you may notice. I can make the whole topic light. So, for example, I can tell you that I will not wave at a waiter to get their attention if I want to pay for a meal in a restaurant. I don't do it. Someone else has to do it. If it's up to me, I'm sitting at that table and I'm waiting until they notice me. And that can take up onto an hour. I've tried. And I admit it is a bit funny. And I actually could tell you a lot of stories out of my life where my social anxiety manifests in a way that is kind of funny. But not all of it is. And some things around the cause for this talk are not light. They are uncomfortable. And it's important for me to speak about them too. Because I can also tell you about my last day at kindergarten. We had an overnight party for us kids that would leave to school after summer. And it was a huge thing, and I've been told I was excited about that like weeks before already. And in the morning at breakfast, I knocked over my hot chocolate, and it spilled all over the table, had to be cleaned up. It's a very small thing that happened. But it was not to my anxiety brain. I remember vividly this hot and dark feeling in my chest. It burned. And I felt all eyes on me, everyone in the room watching me, the other kids and the adults. And my brain told me that right now everyone thought I was stupid, I was clumsy, and that I was completely useless. And everyone knew that I was not worth being here. And I know, I remember that my face felt hot for hours, and I couldn't eat anything that day. I didn't speak again that day. And it's decades later, decades, and I still remember that feeling, this burning need to cry. And I didn't cry because obviously people could judge you for that. And this is all I remember from my last day at kindergarten, this deep and disturbing feel of shame. So I'm using social anxiety in a broad term today, something that many people have encountered to different extents in their life. It can be fleeting and low-key. It can only happen in specific settings, or it can occur a lot in your life, and it can be a burden and even hurt you. And multiple factors can contribute to the development of social anxiety, including personality traits like shyness. Some of us are, for different reasons, more cautious and sensitive, and that makes us more prone to feel anxious in a social context. That is normal, by the way, and I will add a bit to that later. Early life experience can be a cause, family and upbringing, social, cultural background, and there's even really strong evidence that suggests a genetic predisposition. It can be a learned behavior too. People may have encountered rejection or bad reactions in a social context, and that fear helps them to avoid them. So, have you ever been the new kid at a school, and everyone was looking at you because obviously you're new, and then you dare to have not the right brand of clothing on you? It's an awful feeling. And this feeling is the feeling of I don't fit in, I don't belong, I'm not welcome here. And I want to remind you that for some people, in the context of a tech event, this is not even far-fetched. I have spoken at a conference where an attendee posted on Twitter that all women here at this conference are only here for the quota, whatever quota. He used a word I will not repeat anytime. And if people are vocal about you not having a right to be here, it is very easy not to feel welcome. And I'm a cis white woman. That makes it still easier for me to feel like I could fit in than it is for other folks from marginalized groups. And last but not least, we have to talk about how this kind of anxiety is so much multiplied when you have experience or you know that you may not feel safe or not be safe around people. And going into a crowd of people you've never met and you don't know what to expect from them, how can you not be anxious? The social anxiety disorder is the clinical and kind of diagnosable form of social anxiety. And the key distinction between those two lies in the intensity, the duration, and the impact on an individual life. So people with a social anxiety disorder often suffer from a significant distress and impairment in their daily life. They may even avoid social situations altogether. And dependent on sources, it's placed as a third or even second largest mental health problem worldwide today after depression. So the current studies I found suggest the number of people that have, will, or are currently suffering from social anxiety disorder. And worldwide it's 4%, in the US between 5 and 12, and in Europe around 7. And these numbers are for people suffering from the clinical form of social anxiety, the form that has a severe impact on their daily life. The numbers of people living with social anxiety to a lesser or more specific extent are probably way higher. Okay, thanks for staying with me. That was a bit uncomfortable, I guess. Let me drink something. And let me show you some dogs to make you feel better, because it's dogs. I mentioned it in my intro. I worked as a dog trainer for a long time, which was awesome because dogs are awesome, but also working with people was awesome, and I learned a lot about how the brain of mammals is working and why it works. And I kind of developed a superpower. I think it's a superpower because I can relate a lot of things in my life, even in my work life, to dog training. I have a talk about test-driven development and dog training, so I can do that with every topic. And if I look at this social anxiety thing and I take a step back and I look through my dog trainer eyes, like this social fear is a common and natural and inherited response, and it exists with a purpose. It is a good idea to be careful or even ready to flight when you meet individuals of your species for the first time. You have no idea what they are up to. They could be dangerous. So it keeps you safe from harm. It also helps building and maintaining social connections to others. And our ability to form and maintain social bonds have been crucial for the survival of our species, because in groups we are safe. And living in groups, contributing to our safety and our overall well-being, this is something that enabled us to adapt to different environments. And an emotion that leads to a behavior that makes sure that you are not being rejected by a group, that means safety, is a really good idea. And also, evolution plays a role in establishing the biological basis of shyness, which I already told you. Shyness is something that can contribute to social anxiety. And it's really interesting because this is my dog trainer speaking, I'm sorry. There's a concept supported by scientific research that is called the shy-boldness continuum or shy-bold continuum. And that means that individuals of a species, including humans, exhibit a range of behaviors. On one end of the continuum, they exhibit a shy behavior. That means they are timid, they are taking less risks, and they are basically more motivated by staying safe from things. And on the other hand, on this continuum, you have individuals that contribute a bold behavior. That means they show more explorative behavior, they take more risks, they go out more. And of course, there are a lot of individuals that fall somewhere in between this continuum. And the interesting thing is that this can be seen in different species, which suggests that this is a strategy that is really good for the survival of a species, which is why evolution quite likes it. And all in all, this fear around the social context and shyness and the anxiety connected to it is natural, and our brain carries them with a purpose. Alas, it is something that didn't adapt too well, at least in parts of our society today, at least not for some of us. Because often it is not the most fitting reaction anymore, especially in a field like our tech industry, where being bold and meeting new people and building a network can help you being successful. So I've been told, or rather asked in a nicer way, I was asked, like, if it's so uncomfortable for you even thinking about going to a conference, why do you want to go? And another description I found about social anxiety is the illness of missed opportunities, and that is what it felt for me. Because the longer I immersed myself in this developer world, the more conferences and big events came to my attention. And they just seemed like the place to be, you know? Like you go and you meet awesome people and you learn from them, you get inspiration, new ideas. I mean, we are all here for a reason, right? And they are different for all of us. So, for example, it can be helpful for your career because you build a network, or maybe your employer likes to see you going to conferences. And a successful career, means different things to different people. It can mean that it feels like a fulfillment for you, which is good because we spend a lot of time at work. But it can also mean for others that it's a way to ensure their financial stability and safety, maybe for the first time, and it can enable them to provide for themselves and others. Also, one thing about conferences or in general tech events is you can meet people outside of social media and blogs and YouTube, and you can get a glimpse in their honest day-to-day work life. And in German we have a phrase, jeder kocht nur mit Wasser. It translates to everyone just cooks with water. So even highly skilled and experienced individuals rely on basic and fundamental elements, just like everyone else. So in cooking, water is a simple and essential ingredient that everyone uses, regardless of their level of expertise. And this phrase is a reminder that we are all humans. We are subject to the same limitations and basic principles. And connecting to people at tech events can mean, like, take a look in their life and learn that they cook with water just like you. So you can be like, okay, wait, maybe I'm not an imposter because I do cook with water, but so does everyone else. So all in all, these events, in my opinion, can be a place where you start to feel more confident. You may even start to feel like you belong. If you go, that's it, because I didn't. I missed all those chances, and I was aware of that. Because all I could think of was this fear of going to an event and then suddenly being surrounded by hundreds of people looking at me and my knocked over hot chocolate and disapproving me. And I would have finally, my brain told me, proven to myself that I definitely did not belong here. And posts like this showed me that my fear was not really unjustified. People did have horrible experiences. And I was afraid of that happening to me too, because my anxiety didn't need any more fuel. So every time I followed a conference hashtag, and I don't know why I did that, and I read what people posted, I saw their pictures, I felt sad and I felt frustrated, angry at myself, because I felt keenly that I missed an opportunity. So what did I do? I searched the internet, obviously, because that's what you do. And there were, and probably still are, so many tips out there. And also I got tips from people when I talked to them. And let's take a look at a few of those. The first one is, and I read that in some kind of variant quite often, is it is easy to connect to people. So you go to a conference alone. You grab your coffee or tea or breakfast, and then you keep an eye out for a group of people, and then you walk over to them and you just ask, mind if I join you? Just? I don't open the door for pizza. I won't wave at the waiter for attention. And these are both settings where I have a clear assignment. There's a clear justification for me being there and wanting to communicate with these people. They're expecting it from me. And I still can do it. And so imagine me with that feeling, approaching a group of people I've never seen, I don't know, without any valid claim to be in their space and just be like, hi, it's not just. Another one of my favorites is, why are you afraid? Nobody's going to bite you. Gosh, thanks, that's exactly what I was afraid of. Like, so you are saying I probably also don't need to be afraid of people turning into werewolves? I worked as a dog trainer. If the only thing I was afraid of at a conference was a chance of getting bitten, I could deal with that very well. And really, I get where this is coming from, and there's probably good intention behind it. But if my brain, if my amygdala has decided this is a moment where fear and anxiety are appropriate responses, you telling me that I don't need to be afraid is not doing anything for me. So this is also a nice one. So when having to encounter a group of people, just imagine everyone else in their pajamas. Mom, this is not kindergarten. It didn't work back then, and it will not work now. And they would probably judge me for my pajamas anyway. Sometimes, something I encountered a surprising amount of time is a tip to drink to be more social. That sounds like a very healthy solution. And don't get me wrong, if you struggle with social anxiety and you can drink controlled and with care and it helps you in those situations, then you do you. But it's definitely not something like a mechanism that I want to introduce in my life, or I should introduce in my life. And just in case anybody ever thinks about giving that advice at some point, keep in mind that people may not want to drink because it makes them feel more anxious or makes them feel more unsafe. And depending on the environment, it actually can make situations more unsafe. One tip I've seen really often is enlist a friend. And that's the most reasonable advice I found, and the hardest for me, because I didn't have friends that were developers and that did go to events with me. So every time I had exhausted my internet research, I did the next best thing. Water. I was frustrated, and a lot. And I was sad, and as you may have noticed, I was a bit angry at the whole world, at myself. And then, on a random day, sitting on the sofa, talking to my partner back then about the concept of an onboarding buddy that some companies have. You may know that An onboarding buddy is like your dedicated go-to person the first few days or weeks when you join a new company. They show you the ropes, they show you the right channels and Slack, they show you, if you're in the office, they show you where the coffee machine is and where to put your keyboard, which is important information. They introduce you and help you settle into the company. So an onboarding buddy makes you feel comfortable and helps you ease into a new environment. And ideally, they help make you feel part of the team. And while we talked about that, suddenly I was like, onboarding buddy? Guess what? I need a conference buddy. And I felt hilarious because of that pun. And I know it's not a good pun. I'm not good at puns, but I felt hilarious. So I giggled a bit and was like, conference buddy, onboarding buddy. And then I paused. And I thought, wait, I really do need that. That's exactly what I need. So I asked the internet. And there was no such a thing. So let me take you to that moment on the sofa. Imagine me, laptop on my lap, where it belongs, the search engine open, no hit for any kind of conference buddy program. And that was the moment where my problem did not feel like my problem anymore in a way. It felt like it could be ours. It is the moment I stopped feeling helpless, because I realized that maybe there is a problem in our space. And if there's a problem, I think maybe I have just found something that could be a solution. I'm a front-end developer, so my default behavior is I buy a domain, I make a website. And I did that. And on the site, I told people about my idea to create a place to find companions for tech conferences. I added a sign-up to a mailing list, and I tweeted about it. And I wanted to see if there is a need, and if that idea was worth investing more time. And yes, a lot of it was basically finding out, like, am I the only one struggling with that? I mean, realistically, I can't be the only one. And I'm not. This is a poll I made on Twitter. It's no representative data, of course, but it's still very interesting. 40% of the people had experienced that they did go to an event where they didn't know anybody, and they feel uncomfortable because of that. But 25% of the people answering that poll had my experience. They wanted to go somewhere, they didn't know anybody, so they didn't. They stayed home. And I can't describe how I felt in that moment. Like, I was surprised and I felt seen. I felt vindicated even. And I felt a bit giddy and I was like, oh my God, there are more like me? And in general, it hit a nerve in the community. I was super surprised and I got amazing feedback from people reaching out to me. But the best thing is that this idea evolved within days, like without me doing anything other than putting it out there. People began to send tweets with a specific hashtag offering to be a conference buddy or looking for one. And the first successes, the first connection of people were made simply over a few tweets. And this picture is my little first proof of concept because that is me at my first tech conference. And if you are asking yourself, yes, it is the same tech conference where the bathroom picture is from, because, hey, I have to manage my social energy a bit. So Conference Buddy is an ongoing project that I do in my free time, and I'm still working on it. And it is what I did and what I do to be a solution to a problem that I encountered myself. And at this point, you may think, okay, everybody loves a happy ending, right? So, Conference Buddy really got on track in 2019. And for 2020, I had multiple appearances at conferences planned. Back then, I used a forum system as an iteration of Conference Buddy, and I was very active on social media. And it looked like 2020 would be the year. And like probably most of us, I did not have global pandemic on my bingo card for 2020. And of course, in-person conferences stopped being a thing for really quite some time. And then life happens, and life is not always nice, and sometimes you need time to work through things. So I didn't do a lot, basically nothing for Conference Buddy for quite some time. And someday, conferences started to happen more regular and, more important, more predictable again. And I started to work slowly on the next iteration for Conference Buddy. And it aimed to complement the Twitter hashtag, because this is what worked really well for Conference Buddy. And I think you see where this is going, right? I don't even, the the main channel that Conference Buddy worked really well was in shambles. And I was left with that feeling of never being able to fill out that role. It was, and yes, nowadays I'm using the past tense, it was a social network that connected thousands and thousands of people from the tech community, and it enabled them to learn about Conference Buddy. And how could I fill out that role? And at that point, honestly, I lost hope for the whole thing. And then I was end of last year and this year at conferences the first time again with a Conference Buddy booth, and that was really good because I could see how people are interacted with Conference Buddy or through Conference Buddy. But more important, it brought up one particular memory I want to share with you. So there was a big conference happening in 2019 where a lot of people that I knew and that belonged to the Conference Buddy community did go to. And these people took badges with them and stickers, and they tweeted a lot before and during the event when that still worked. And it worked great because a lot of people did connect through the hashtag. And one of my friends reached out to me after the event and told me he had met with a person reaching out via the hashtag. And he met them at the beginning of the conference, outside at the entrance. He gave them a badge and they talked a bit. And that person thanked him, and they told him in tears that they had bought a ticket for the same event the year before. And it was a really expensive conference. And they did come to the venue, but they didn't go in. They couldn't, because they felt afraid. They didn't know if they would be welcome at that event. And that year with Conference Buddy, they did go in. And I remembered that feeling I had during that phone call and ninjas cutting onions in the room. And when I remembered that, I thought, like, what the heck? I'm doing that. Like, my motivation was back, I was back, and I thought, okay, let's do what I've done before. Like, throw away what I have, change course, see what works, build something small, test it out, and then adapt. So, right now at this point in the talk, this has kind of a mixed ending because there's like a lot of uncertainty around what Conference Buddy will be. Will there be an app? Will there be trained buddies? Will there be a Conference Buddy booth all over the world? I can't tell you. But I can tell you what Conference Buddy needs to be. It needs to be free, it needs to be accessible, and it needs to be something that people can feel trust and safety with. It needs to amplify the community of people that want to make our small space in this world a bit more welcoming and open. And it needs to be something that helps people to enter spaces where they feel like they can belong. And I don't obviously want to leave with a mixed ending, so luckily there are a few things that every one of us can do to help right now, completely independent of Conference Buddy. First and foremost, I want you to be aware. There is something like social anxieties that we need to be aware of because otherwise we are excluding people. And I want you to be empathetic and open-minded. There are so many things that we can see as normal because they feel good and comfortable for us. It takes effort to remind ourselves that our experience is not the same as for others. And if one feels very comfortable going to a big conference on their own, it can be hard to empathize with somebody that stays home because of that. Because nobody's going to bite them, right? And it is not about feeling sorry for people. It is about having an open heart and feeling with people and act accordingly. And this is why I'm talking about this today. I want you to be aware. Because this is a chance for us as a community to be more open. We can try to be a support and help people taking part in our communities. Also, I want you to talk about what you heard today. Speak to conference organizers and meetup organizers, maybe about including strategies to be more welcoming and more inclusive. And if you feel comfortable, talk about your moments of social anxiety if you had any, because this can open a door that others can follow through. It reduces shame around the topic and invites us to be more open in sharing. Don't think it's easy for me to stand here and talk about all of this. It is not, but it is important for me. Also, follow the Pac-Man rule on events. So when we are standing in a group of people, we humans tend to build a circle. It's just a good way to stand. And a circle is something that looks very closed. And instead of doing the circle thingy, always leave room for one person to join, so it looks like a little Pac-Man. And if a person joins and the circle is closed again, open it up again for the next person to join. But also think about Pac-Man in general and feel absolutely free to do the outside of our little tech event world too. Do it in your job with communities you are part of. Do it for all people. Notice when we are creating a closed circle, and let's remind ourselves and keep ourselves accountable for actually making space for others to join us time and time again. Last but not least, of course, be a conference buddy. Offer to be a conference buddy to someone you know. Offer to be a conference buddy via social media. Being aware of this topic means you might notice discomfort in others earlier. So, for example, a coworker could say something like, NewCrafts, that sounds really nice, but there are so many people, I don't know anyone. And you can offer to go together. Perhaps a person is not able to ask for support just now or does not even realize he could benefit from it. And if you are like me, like if you have dealt with this kind of social anxiety, I want to tell you 3 things. Actually, I want to tell you a lot of more things, but I boiled it down to 3 because there's only so much time. I hope my talk already showed that, but I want to repeat it again because it is so important. You are not alone. There are others out here that feel like you and that can relate to you. And I'm sure there are people right now in this audience that absolutely can relate to you. I know there will be people watching this later that know all these feelings. And I can guarantee you, you will see people talking on stages that absolutely get you. And I want you to know and to realize that you are not alone and really feel that. And I want you to imagine all these people dealing with this kind of feelings. And the compassion you feel for them, I want to feel it for you too. Since I started working on Conference Buddy, I met a lot of people and I visited quite a few events. And the beautiful thing I learned is there are so many people out there that want to support and empower others. And you have to see and live this for yourself. Because me telling you that, it doesn't do anything. You have to see it to believe me. I wouldn't believe myself either. And with Conference Buddy, I want to help you to make this experience. And in the end, the hardest part is yours, because you are the one who has to put yourself out there. You have to enter a space that feels scary and maybe even unsafe. And I don't want to be like, you can do it, because I feel that is overly positive and over the top, because it negates how tough it can be. And it negates that maybe you are in a place where you would like to do it, but you can't right now. Maybe you have to take care of other things in your life first, and that is okay. So I want to say, you can do it when you are ready. And I'm trying to create a community where hopefully you can feel safe to try if you're ready, when you're ready. And I'm trying to create a community to learn for yourself what I already know about you, that you belong. And if you do that step, if you're ready and you're doing it, I will be there, but whoever, it's not super important. The important thing is there is a growing community of amazing people that will be there for you. So I thought about maybe I have to change my slides and everybody needs somebody. Like I said, I'm bad with puns. And there's something, like 2 things actually I want to add at this point. And the first thing is, like I told you, social anxiety is nothing uncommon. And it can be very hard to live with it. Like, both things are true. It is common and it is hard. And seeking help and support is not a sign of weakness, it is a strength. And I can only encourage everybody that struggles with that kind of things to use all resources that we can find for support, like books, support groups, online resources, and of course therapy if you have access to it. And the second thing is, I'm really aware that Conference Buddy is a solution to a problem that in itself is kind of privileged. Because I'm talking about people working in the tech industry. As someone that has worked in different jobs and different industry for a long time, I can tell you we are pretty privileged already. And it is a solution for people that are in a position that they can already afford and thinking about going to a conference. And I'm not taking anything away from Conference Buddy because I'm really proud of the project and I'm convinced that it can do good, and it already did. And when I started to work on this talk, this was my last slide actually. But then I thought, well, maybe I can add a different one. And it's like really small. It's only big for me. But yesterday I released the alpha version, basically for testing for a Conference Buddy app. And it is probably buggy. It has a lot of missing features, but if you want to, you can sign in. I fixed the sign-in bug yesterday. I think you should be fine to sign in. And yeah, test it and feel free to give me feedback. How can we develop this platform or this, whatever it is going to be, for our communities? And this is now the end for real. Thank you for listening.